In the preface of Everything is Fucked by Mark Manson, the author sets the stage for what readers can expect from the book. He opens by acknowledging that despite living in the most prosperous and comfortable time in history, many people are still struggling with depression, anxiety, and a lack of purpose in life. Manson believes that the root of these problems lies in our culture's obsession with positivity and happiness. According to Manson, the culture of positivity has created a denial of the negative aspects of life, leaving people ill-equipped to deal with the inevitable struggles and hardships that arise. This denial has created a culture of entitlement, where people feel they are entitled to happiness and success without putting in the necessary work. Manson argues that this is a problem because it leads to a lack of resilience and a sense of purpose, which are necessary for our psychological well-being. To overcome this cultural problem, Manson suggests that we need to accept and embrace the negative aspects of life and recognize that suffering is an integral part of the human experience. He argues that this acceptance will help us develop a sense of purpose and meaning in life, which is essential for our psychological well-being. By embracing suffering and recognizing that it is a necessary part of the human experience, we can develop a greater sense of resilience and purpose. Manson also emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for our lives, rather than blaming external factors such as society or our upbringing. He believes that by taking responsibility, we can regain control of our lives and find a sense of agency and empowerment. By accepting that we are responsible for our lives, we can develop a greater sense of purpose and control over our lives. Overall, the preface of Everything is Fucked sets the tone for the book's central message, which is to embrace the challenges of life and find meaning and purpose in them. By doing so, we can live more fulfilling and satisfying lives. Manson's insights and perspective provide valuable and actionable information that can help readers navigate the complexities of modern life and find a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment. Part 1, Hope. Chapter 1, The Uncomfortable Truth. In Chapter 1, Manson argues that the human mind evolved to prioritize survival over happiness. He suggests that our brain's primary function is to keep us alive and reproduce, not to make us happy. As a result, our minds are wired to be anxious, negative, and to focus on problems, which was necessary for our ancestors' survival. Manson explains that our brain's evolutionary adaptation is a fundamental reason why people struggle to be happy and content, despite living in the most prosperous time in human history. He argues that we are wired to focus on problems and negative experiences, and we must accept this to overcome our suffering. He also introduces the concept of the feedback loop from hell, where our negative thoughts and emotions feed into each other, creating a cycle of negativity and self-destructive behavior. This feedback loop is the cause of much of our suffering, and it can be difficult to break. Manson suggests that to overcome this feedback loop, we must accept the discomfort and pain that come with life. By acknowledging that life is challenging, and there will be setbacks, we can break the cycle of negative thinking and behavior. Furthermore, Manson argues that our pursuit of happiness can often lead to more suffering. He suggests that we must be careful not to put too much emphasis on our personal happiness and instead focus on what is meaningful and fulfilling in our lives. By focusing on a deeper sense of purpose, we can find a more sustained and authentic form of happiness. In conclusion, Chapter 1 provides valuable insights into why the human mind is wired for survival rather than happiness. Manson's exploration of the feedback loop from hell and the pitfalls of pursuing happiness provides actionable advice for overcoming negativity and finding deeper meaning in our lives. Chapter 2, Self-Control is an Illusion. In this chapter, Manson argues that self-control is an illusion and that our behavior is largely determined by our environment and the stimuli around us. Manson begins by examining the concept of free will and argues that it is an illusion. He suggests that much of our behavior is determined by our genetics, environment, and past experiences, making it challenging to exercise free will. Furthermore, Manson suggests that our brains have a limited capacity for self-control, and this capacity can be depleted quickly. He points out that we are more likely to give in to temptations when we are tired, hungry, or stressed. Manson also discusses the concept of delayed gratification and argues that it is overrated. He suggests that people who are successful at delaying gratification are not necessarily exercising more self-control but are instead focusing on more immediate and meaningful rewards. To overcome our lack of self-control, Manson suggests that we need to create an environment that supports our desired behaviors. He argues that by making small changes to our environment, we can increase our chances of success. Moreover, Manson suggests that we need to be aware of our triggers and the stimuli that lead to negative behavior. By identifying these triggers, we can modify our environment and make it easier to avoid negative behavior. In conclusion, Chapter 2 challenges the idea of self-control and argues that our environment and stimuli play a more significant role in determining our behavior. Manson's insights provide actionable advice for creating an environment that supports positive behavior and avoiding negative behavior triggers. By doing so, we can increase our chances of success and live more fulfilling lives. Chapter 3, Newton's Laws of Emotion. In this chapter, Manson explores the nature of emotions and how they impact our behavior and decision-making. Manson begins by introducing the 3 laws of emotion, which are inspired by Newton's laws of motion. The first law of emotion is that emotions persist until they are acted upon. The second law is that the greater the emotional force, the greater the need for action. The third law is that for every action, there is an equal and opposite emotional reaction. Manson argues that emotions are a necessary and valuable part of the human experience, and that they provide us with valuable information about ourselves and our environment. However, he also suggests that emotions can be harmful when they are not properly managed. To manage our emotions effectively, Manson suggests that we need to acknowledge and accept them rather than trying to suppress or ignore them. He also recommends practicing mindfulness and being present in the moment to help regulate our emotions. Moreover, Manson highlights the importance of taking action to address our emotions, rather than letting them linger and fester. He argues that action is a key component of emotional regulation and that taking small steps towards our goals can help us feel more in control of our emotions. Finally, Manson suggests that we need to be aware of our emotional triggers and the situations that cause us to experience intense emotions. By identifying these triggers, we can take steps to avoid or manage them. In conclusion, Chapter 3 provides valuable insights into the nature of emotions and how they impact our behavior and decision-making. Manson's 3 laws of emotion provide a useful framework for understanding and managing our emotions, while his advice on acceptance, mindfulness, and taking action provides actionable steps for regulating our emotions effectively. Before we continue, we would like to inform you that we release these summaries in audio format on Spotify before we release them on YouTube in video format, with subtitles. We have also created a goldmine of information which you can get exclusive access to by supporting us on Patreon. You get in-depth summaries plus scripts, usually twice the length of our YouTube content, a list of the top 20 key takeaways and exercises, summary requests, and more. Thank you for the support and don't forget to hit the like button. Chapter 4, How to Make All Your Dreams Come True. In Chapter 4, Manson challenges the popular notion that you can achieve anything if you just believe in yourself and work hard enough. He argues that this mindset is not only unrealistic but can also lead to disappointment and disillusionment. Manson suggests that rather than focusing solely on achieving our goals, we should also focus on the process of achieving them. He argues that the process is just as important, if not more so, than the outcome, and that we should enjoy the journey rather than obsessing over the destination. Furthermore, Manson argues that setting unrealistic goals can be harmful, as it can lead to feelings of inadequacy and failure. Instead, he suggests setting small, achievable goals that build confidence and momentum. Manson also introduces the concept of the feedback loop from hell, in which our efforts to achieve a goal actually make us feel worse about ourselves, leading to a cycle of self-doubt and negativity. He suggests that the key to breaking out of this cycle is to focus on the present moment and take small steps towards our goals, rather than becoming fixated on the outcome. Finally, Manson discusses the importance of having a sense of purpose and meaning in life. He suggests that rather than chasing after external validation and success, we should focus on building strong relationships, contributing to society, and finding fulfillment in the present moment. Overall, Chapter 4 challenges the conventional wisdom around achieving success and happiness. Manson argues that the key to a fulfilling life is not just achieving our goals, but also enjoying the process, setting realistic expectations, and finding meaning and purpose in our lives. Chapter 5, Hope is Fucked. In this chapter, Manson argues that hope, which is often seen as a positive force, can actually be harmful in some cases. Manson begins by discussing the concept of learned helplessness, which is a psychological phenomenon where individuals feel powerless to change their circumstances, even if they have the ability to do so. He suggests that hope can sometimes lead to learned helplessness because it causes us to focus on things that are outside of our control, rather than taking action to change our situation. Manson also argues that hope can lead to disappointment and disillusionment, particularly when we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves or others. He suggests that we should focus on accepting reality as it is, rather than hoping for things to be different. Furthermore, Manson suggests that hope can be a form of self-deception, as it allows us to avoid facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. He argues that we should embrace uncertainty and accept that life is inherently unpredictable. Finally, Manson offers an alternative to hope: acceptance. He suggests that accepting reality as it is can be empowering, as it allows us to focus on what we can control and take action to improve our situation. By accepting our limitations and the limitations of the world around us, we can find a sense of peace and contentment. Overall, Chapter 5 challenges the idea that hope is always a positive force in our lives. Manson argues that hope can sometimes be harmful, leading to learned helplessness, disappointment, and self-deception. Instead, he suggests that acceptance of reality as it is can be a more empowering and fulfilling approach to life. Part 2, Everything is Fucked. Chapter 6, The Formula of Humanity. In Chapter 6, Manson discusses the concept of the formula of humanity, which is a way of understanding human behavior and motivation. According to the formula of humanity, every human being has two basic desires: to feel good and to reduce suffering. Manson argues that all of our actions and decisions can be traced back to these two fundamental desires. Manson explains that the formula of humanity can be useful in helping us to understand our own behavior, as well as the behavior of others. By recognizing that all people are driven by the desire to feel good and reduce suffering, we can have more empathy for others and approach situations with a greater understanding of what motivates people. The chapter also explores the idea that many of us are driven by the desire to feel special or unique, but that this can be problematic because it can lead to feelings of isolation and disconnection from others. Manson suggests that rather than seeking to be special or unique, we should focus on our shared humanity and the things that connect us to others. Ultimately, Manson argues that the formula of humanity can help us to live more fulfilling lives by allowing us to better understand our own motivations and desires, as well as those of the people around us. By recognizing that we are all driven by the same basic desires, we can cultivate greater compassion, empathy, and understanding in our relationships with others. Chapter 7, Pain is the Universal Constant. In Chapter 7, Manson discusses the inevitability of pain in life and how to deal with it. He asserts that pain is an unavoidable aspect of the human experience and that we must learn to accept it and use it to our advantage rather than trying to avoid it at all costs. Manson argues that most people are taught to avoid pain, and that this mentality leads to avoidance behaviors, such as substance abuse, procrastination, and other destructive habits. He believes that, instead, we should learn to embrace pain as a necessary and even beneficial part of life. He claims that by accepting pain and using it to motivate us, we can achieve great things. Manson also suggests that people should embrace the pain of others, rather than turning a blind eye to it or trying to fix it. He encourages empathy and understanding, suggesting that we can all benefit from recognizing and honoring the pain of others. In addition, Manson suggests that we can learn to control our reactions to pain by changing our mindset. Rather than seeing pain as something to be feared, we should embrace it as a challenge that we can overcome. This shift in mindset, according to Manson, can help us to better handle difficult situations and come out stronger on the other side. Overall, Manson argues that pain is an essential part of the human experience and that we should embrace it rather than avoid it. By doing so, we can learn to harness its power and use it to propel us toward our goals. Chapter 8, The Feelings Economy. In Chapter 8 of Everything is Fucked, Mark Manson discusses how the economy of the world has shifted from a goods-based economy to a feelings-based economy, where people are willing to pay more for experiences that make them feel good, rather than material goods. He argues that this shift has happened because the basic needs of people, such as food and shelter, have already been met in most parts of the world, and people are now looking for new ways to fulfill their needs for meaning and purpose. Manson also argues that the feelings-based economy has its downsides, as people become addicted to the pursuit of positive emotions and avoid negative emotions at all costs. This leads to a culture of instant gratification, where people are more focused on the short-term pleasure than on long-term fulfillment. Furthermore, the feelings-based economy has led to the commodification of emotions, where people are expected to perform positive emotions in social situations, such as in the workplace, even if they don't feel it. This creates a sense of inauthenticity and emotional disconnection. Manson proposes that the way to counter the negative effects of the feelings-based economy is to embrace negative emotions and understand that they are a necessary part of the human experience. He suggests that by accepting negative emotions, people can gain a deeper understanding of themselves and their values, and be more equipped to pursue meaningful and fulfilling lives. Ultimately, Manson suggests that the key to happiness is not to avoid negative emotions, but to learn how to navigate them in a healthy and productive way. Chapter 9: The Final Religion. In The Final Religion, Manson explores the idea of religion and its role in human life. He argues that while traditional religions like Christianity and Islam have lost their grip on society, people still have a need for something to believe in. Manson suggests that this need has been filled by other ideologies, such as political beliefs or self-help movements. According to Manson, people are attracted to these ideologies because they offer a sense of purpose and belonging, as well as a set of values to live by. However, he warns that this can lead to a dangerous us versus them mentality, where anyone who doesn't share the same beliefs is seen as an enemy. Manson proposes an alternative to traditional religions and ideologies: the religion of responsibility. He suggests that instead of looking to external sources for meaning and purpose, people should take responsibility for their own lives and create their own sense of purpose. He argues that this leads to a greater sense of freedom and personal power. To achieve this, Manson suggests that individuals need to confront their own mortality and embrace the reality that life is finite. By doing so, they can prioritize what is truly important to them and let go of the things that don't matter. Manson also suggests that people need to embrace their flaws and vulnerabilities, and find a way to integrate them into their sense of self. Overall, The Final Religion offers a thought-provoking perspective on the role of religion and ideology in modern society, and suggests a powerful alternative approach to finding purpose and meaning in life. Conclusion. In the conclusion of Everything is Fucked, Mark Manson reflects on the main themes of the book and ties them together to present a final perspective on the human condition. He highlights the paradoxical nature of the modern world, where unprecedented technological advances have resulted in unprecedented levels of dissatisfaction and disconnection. Manson argues that the prevailing cultural narrative of the pursuit of happiness has created a society obsessed with instant gratification and the avoidance of pain, leading to a paradoxical state where individuals are less happy and more miserable than ever before. He notes that the human brain is hardwired to seek out pleasure and avoid pain, but that this tendency has been exploited by corporations and the media to create a culture of consumerism and distraction. However, Manson suggests that there is a way out of this cycle of dissatisfaction and despair. He argues that instead of striving for happiness, individuals should focus on finding meaning and purpose in their lives. By embracing the inevitable pain and suffering that comes with being human, individuals can cultivate resilience and build a sense of purpose that transcends momentary happiness. Manson also emphasizes the importance of cultivating empathy and compassion for others, as well as recognizing our interconnectedness as a species. He argues that the human experience is fundamentally relational and that we are all part of a larger system of meaning and purpose. By cultivating a sense of responsibility for our fellow human beings, we can begin to build a more just and compassionate world. In the end, Manson argues that the key to navigating the chaos and uncertainty of the modern world lies in embracing the paradoxes of the human experience. By acknowledging the inevitability of pain and suffering, embracing our interdependence, and striving for meaning and purpose, we can begin to transcend the limitations of our individual selves and build a more compassionate and fulfilling world for ourselves and for future generations.